Starting your first website can be daunting. You found out your domain name, you've already got a designer, but what actually goes into the website? Before all that coding goes on to, the web digital space itself, you've got to figure out what actually is going to go onto the website. So stay tuned for 4 tips on how you can start your very own first website. Now, whenever you think about starting up your first website itself, always think about these main 4 elements. First up, let's talk about the logo. Now, having a snazzy, fancy logo like, one of those big MNC companies, it's pretty fine, but you're probably going to spend thousands of dollars for something that you're just starting out. Doesn't make sense, does it? So when you're starting up your very first logo, well, obviously you've got a brand name. Why not create a text logo? It's simple to do, it's easy to make. Just use Google fonts, okay, and open up a Google Doc and create a text-based logo. And that's your very first logo itself. So from there, you can just, do a screenshot, crop it up, create an image file. Bam, that's your first logo. Or, if you feel that you want to splurge out a little bit more and create maybe a visual graphic, you can check out Fiverr.com, where you can get your logo for as little as $5 up to about $20 to $40 itself, depending on some specifications. So it's not going to break the bank to do a pretty logo. And think about it, this is going to be your very first website. So no one's expecting you to, get it right the very first time. So get something rather reasonably priced, and then from there on, if business picks up, do a rebranding and maybe change up the logo and spend a couple of $1,000s, get a professional designer to work on that. Next up, fonts and colors. Now, as a rule of thumb itself, any website shouldn't have anything more than 2 fonts. Good option would be check out type.io or FontJoy, where you can find out font pairings and also visualize the different fonts that are going to be used for your website itself. Now, this gives you a good measure when you're explaining to a web designer, and it makes you more specific in terms of what kind of font represents your brand. When it comes to colors, check out colors.co for a few color palettes, or also even web gradients. Now, gradients are the latest trend in 2018 when it comes to web design. So if you're looking for a nice gradient background on your let's say your hero section, or maybe for your buttons or certain elements itself, check out webgradients.com for a few gradient options. Now, when it comes to colors as well, stick to about 3 colors, focusing on a few primary colors throughout the site. There are different options when it comes to your use of colors in a website. Are you a fun, lively, and vibrant website that's catering to millennials? Or are you focusing more towards the corporate audience? So always think about your target audience. Always think about your brand values when you choose the colors. And this is usually the hardest part. So you as the customer need to figure this out before you kind of bring this up to your web designer or developer. Kind of shows your ownership in the process as well. Next up, high quality images. Now, having good images and high resolution images is really important, especially in today's world. We're having devices that are, more responsive and having higher resolutions. So you always expect, the bare minimum of images being sharp and crisp. So you can check out sites like Unsplash Pexels or Realistic Shots, and where they've got a couple of free to use high quality images that you can use pertaining to your website or your brand. Now, always remember, the best images that you could use on your website are of your actual product or your customer. So always, get a local photographer or maybe even a friend with a camera to take a couple of photographs, and it is your first website after all. So no one's expecting it to be, nice and swanky, with bokeh effects and all that. But, bare minimum, just as long as the image is in focus and of the product itself, customers have, or your clients on your website will have an idea of what actually they're going to be buying or the service that you provide as well. Now, last up, and pretty much the most important thing, is having a clear navigation. Now, when it comes to the navigation structure itself, you want to make sure that, when clients are coming to your website, they know exactly what they're there for and how they can get their information that they need. So always start off with a sitemap. You know what's best. So kind of draw out, you know, what the structure of the website would be. Now this is basically the skeleton and the bones of the website, if you'd like. And from there, once that is fleshed out, you know, move down to the wireframe. So the wireframe basically visualizes this sitemap itself. So it tells you where the navigation would be, where, you know, the different sections would end, and the next one will continue, you know, and it gives a bare bone monochrome look to the feel of it. And then from there, you move to the next stage, which is prototyping. So in prototyping, you've got two different stages. You've got the low fidelity prototypes where you could use pieces of paper cut out, and then you could actually ask, you know, maybe customers, potential customers or current customers to take a look at these prototypes and figure out, okay, you know what, do you think that this button should be here, or do you think it was hard to find? So that's where you work around how your clients would interact with your website, and it would alleviate a lot more problems later on, if, you know, in terms of conversions or customer confusion. On the flip side of the other end spectrum of prototypes, you've got the high fidelity prototypes, where you've got an actual mock-up of a website and you can interact, and you can punch the button and it goes to the next page, or a pop-up modal comes out. Now all these are good, but they're a lot more expensive to come up with, and if you got a lot of changes during that stage itself, it's going to be really costly and time consuming as well. So it's always good to start off and figure out the changes in the low fidelity stage itself, and then from there on you can actually pass it to the web designer and developers to code the website and then come up with the final piece. Now I hope those 4 tips really helped you on figuring out what actually you need to get started with your first website. So don't worry, it's not a daunting task, all right? If you just follow these steps, focus on a text logo, get some high quality images, figure out what kind of fonts and colors you're going to be using in the different places in your website, and focus on a clear navigation structure, and you should be pretty fine and have a wonderful website. So if you've got any questions about any of these things that we discussed, just send me an email to hello@PageXsg.com, or, you know, just leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Till then, keep making the web a safe place.